In a nice restaurant, filled with the soft clinking of glasses and quiet chatter, a first date was falling apart. At a small table, a woman named Alara stared at her menu, but she wasn't really reading it. She was trying her best to keep a hopeful look on her face, but it was starting to crack. Across from her, a man named Kai let out a long, loud sigh. He wasn't even trying to hide how annoyed he was. "You know," he said, his voice just dripping with condescension, "this is just impossible. This is way too much work for a date." Alara looked up, her brow furrowed as she focused, trying to read his lips. She grabbed her phone and her fingers flew across the screen. A moment later, a calm, digital voice spoke for her. "I'm sorry. Is this difficult? We can type if it's easier." Kai scoffed and leaned back, crossing his arms. "Easier? Nothing about this is easy. A blind date is supposed to be fun. Not this. It feels like I'm on a date with a smartphone." Her face fell. The digital voice came again, quieter this time. "I told you in my profile I was deaf." "Yeah, hearing impaired," Kai mocked, using air quotes. "You left out the part where you can't speak at all. Do you know how weird this is? I can't be with someone who's a liability." A few tables over, a man named Liam was watching. The gentle exhaustion of a single dad was etched on his face, but now it was hardening into anger. His 7-year-old daughter, Chloe, looked up from her coloring book. "Daddy," she whispered, "why is that man being so mean to the pretty lady?" Liam put a hand on her shoulder, but his eyes were locked on the scene. "Because, sweetheart," he said, his voice tight, "he's a small man who thinks making other people feel small will make him feel big." Alara's hands were trembling as she started to type another response, but Kai cut her off. "You know what? Just save it." He threw his napkin on the table like a white flag of surrender. "I'm not wasting my Friday night on a charity case. This was a mistake." He stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. Heads turned. The quiet buzz of the restaurant faded into a tense silence. Alara felt everyone's eyes on her, and the shame was so hot it felt like a sunburn. She had never felt more alone. Kai didn't even look at her again. He just turned and walked toward the door, leaving her there like an island in a sea of silent judgment. The sounds she couldn't hear were suddenly deafening. The whispers, the pitying looks, the feeling that everyone thought she was somehow broken. She stared at the beautiful plate of food in front of her, which now just felt like a cruel joke. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she just wanted to disappear. The waitress walked over, her face a mix of professional duty and pity. "Ma'am, is everything okay? Will the gentleman be coming back?" Alara could only shake her head, the simple motion feeling heavy and final. She reached for her purse to pay and get out of there as fast as she could, but before she could, a shadow fell over her table. She looked up and saw Liam. He didn't say anything. He knew she wouldn't hear him. Instead, he just gave her a small, kind smile. He took out his own phone, typed a few words, and showed her the screen. It said, "You are not the one who should be embarrassed." "He is." Alara stared at the words on his phone, and for the first time all night, she felt a tiny spark of warmth. Her fingers, still shaking, found her own phone. "Thank you," the digital voice said. "You didn't have to do that," Liam typed back, his motions calm. "My mom always said kindness doesn't cost anything. Besides, my daughter was watching. I want her to see what doing the right thing looks like." He nodded toward Chloe, who gave a little wave. A real smile, the first one of the night, touched Alara's lips. For the next few minutes, they had a silent conversation, their two phones bridging the quiet gap. She learned his name was Liam and he was a widower. His daughter was his whole world. He learned her name was Alara, and she was an astrocartographer who mapped distant stars. For a moment, she didn't feel like a burden. She just felt like a person. But just as she started to feel a little better, a familiar, arrogant voice sliced through the air. "Are you kidding me?" Kai was back, standing by the host stand and dangling his keys. He was staring at Liam and Alara with total disbelief. "Wow, you move on fast. Already found another sucker to pay for your dinner?" The restaurant went silent again. This time, the silence felt charged, like everyone was holding their breath. Liam slowly stood up, positioning himself between Kai and Alara. He wasn't aggressive, but he had a solid, unmovable strength to him. "You forgot something," Liam said, his voice low but clear enough to carry across the room. "And it wasn't just your keys. It was your decency." Kai let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, here we go." "Captain Savaho, what's it to you, buddy?" "This is what it is to me," Liam said, his gaze never leaving Kai's. He glanced over at Chloe, who was watching with wide, worried eyes. "My daughter's mother, my late wife. used to say that some people only listen with their ears, and they miss all the important things. He took a step closer to Kai. She taught me a person's worth isn't what they can or can't do. It's measured by their heart, and you just showed everyone in this room that you don't have one. He wasn't done. I'm raising my daughter to see the person, not the disability. What if that was her in 10 years? What if some ignorant fool treated her like she was too much work because of something she couldn't change? You didn't just reject a date. You rejected a person. You looked at a whole universe of possibilities, and all you could see was a tiny barrier in your own mind. You have no idea what you just threw away. Kai just stood there, frozen, the smug look completely gone from his face. Liam's words hit him harder than a punch. He looked from Liam to Alara, who was watching him not with anger, but with a deep, profound sadness. For the first time, he actually saw the woman he'd just humiliated. Shame, hot and unfamiliar, washed over him. I'm sorry, he stammered, the words feeling like ash in his mouth. He looked right at Alara. That was wrong. I was a jerk. Alara looked at him for a long moment, then just gave a single, slow nod. It was an acknowledgement, not forgiveness. The real healing was already happening, thanks to someone else. She turned her attention back to Liam, and the small, grateful smile she gave him was brighter than any light in the room. Defeated, Kai grabbed his keys and walked out for the second time. But this time, he looked small, his arrogance replaced by the posture of a man who'd just been forced to see how ugly he could be. Liam watched him go, then went back to his table and whispered something to Chloe. She slid out of her seat and they both walked over to Alara. Chloe shyly held out a piece of paper. It was her drawing. A crayon masterpiece of 3 stick figures under a sky of colorful, swirling stars. There was a man, a little girl, and in the middle, a woman with shining, silvery hair, just like Alara's. All 3 were holding hands and smiling. Tears came to Alara's eyes again, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from gratitude. She took the drawing like it was the most precious thing in the world. Liam typed one last message on his phone and showed it to her. My wife was the one who taught me to sign. Our daughter is also deaf. Then he moved his hands. The signs were slow, clear, and filled with a kindness that needed no sound. You deserve better. Alara's breath caught. A stranger hadn't just stood up for her. He understood her world in a way her date refused to even try. She looked from the father to his smiling daughter, and she didn't see pity. She saw connection. Liam and Chloe left, and Alara stayed at her table, holding the child's drawing. The restaurant was no longer a place of shame, but the scene of a small miracle. She was still sitting alone, but she didn't feel lonely anymore. A cruel man tried to make her feel worthless, but a kind father and his daughter showed her she was invaluable. Her faith in kindness wasn't just restored. It was proven by the simple, powerful act of a stranger who chose to see her when she felt completely invisible. It just goes to show you, true worth has nothing to do with being perfect. It's about seeing the value in others, especially when they feel invisible. Kindness is a language that everyone can speak, but it's heard the loudest by those who need it most. What did you think of this story? Let us know in the comments. And for more inspiring stories, don't forget to subscribe.